Most of them undo with 2 screws front and back. This little Aston Martin, I think, is about 1964, something like that. So a bit more light. Okay, so taking off the body, we can then clean this, make sure everything's nice and tidy for when we put it back together, keeping our 2 screws to one side. And here we can see how it actually works. It picks up the power on the 2 contacts here. They then press against these springs here, which come around here, touch a series of bushes, one on either side, which touch the commutator in the centre, spins the motor, spins the gear, and spins the gear to the back wheels to drive them. Now, as you can see, the parts on here are extremely small, so I tend to find, as someone with less than 20/20 vision, some help is required. And one of the good things I pinch is from our other half's craft room. It's a magnifier that is on a nice stand, so it'd be hands free. And additionally, it has a nice little feature. It has an LED that just sits above it so that we can see what we're actually doing, and everything is nice. You'll see here that in some of them there's a little red cap on top of the spring. Some have it, some don't. We have one here and one there. So if we take this apart slowly, and we're going to redo it, so we'll take the red cap off. There we go. Okay, we've removed the little red cap, and this is where we have to be extremely careful. The little brushes are held in at the back here, and if you look very closely, you can see that the spring pushes against the bush. Now you will notice that if the spring is right back into that little groove there, and the same on this side, it means the brushes are worn out and need replacing. In this particular instance, we can still see we have a little bit of wear left on the brushes. But what can happen is that the brushes, as they degrade and rub against the commutator, they get a little bit of carbon. It stops it sliding. And if it doesn't slide nice and freely, it doesn't make a good contact. But it is important, very important, that when you take these apart, you note which way out the brush comes, because the brush has a curve on it to fit around the commutator, and it has to go back in the same way, otherwise you'll find that it won't work properly. So if we take the one out on this side, the spring up, and we can remove our spring. And if you notice, the springs are different shapes and they go onto the different sides. So let's just gently see if we can remove our brush. Now you can see there, as often happens, it's fallen out. So now you would have to determine which way the concave works before you put it back in. And we do the same on the other side. So you can see how tiny these are. Okay, so we now have a look at our car. And there are several things to note. First of all, of course, there's a lot of dust in here. Dust does not help. And we can also see on here where it runs against the commutator in here and can be a little bit dirty. We can clean this with a very, very light abrasive to get a nice good connection. In this particular instance, I can get down the slot quite nicely with a cocktail stick, and you can see there the carbon that's come off. And we'll just gently wipe the other side. That's fine. Sometimes in these cases you will find that the gear here has become dirty, and again it's a good opportunity to clean it. Finally, we have the front pickups to have a look at. These can be removed with the screw. Oh, it hasn't come out for a number of years. Careful not to lose any of the parts. And it's been a bit stubborn today. There it is, there's it coming up now. Always remembering which way you took it apart. And there's the bottom section. Again, good chance there to clean the axle. You can see even on here there's a little bit of fluff. It just stops it running that a little bit freer than it would do otherwise. So we can clean all that off. Then we have our front contacts, and we want to make sure that they're nice and clean. Again, just a little abrasive to make sure that they're going to attack. Be very gentle with these, they are quite delicate. Just going to put this under my magnifier, I can see myself then. Nice clean pickup, works wonders. And likewise, where the spring at the top rubs, make sure that's nice and clean to get a really good contact. Excellent. And of course, you can clean the end of the springs where they touch too. Just a little bit thicker there. Most of the problems with the cars I'm going is dirty connections, and it means that the current can't get round and the motor can't drive. If the motor no longer works, I haven't yet seen a replacement motor, but I should imagine there are some around somewhere. Somebody in maybe China makes one somewhere, but a lot more difficult to do that. Okay, so once we've done that, we can simply reassemble. Making sure that we get it all nicely in. There we go. Just no dirt in there. Finally, just screw that back together. Reasonably tight. Make sure it's nice and free. Got the wheels in. They only hold in by this little contact at the front. You may also at this stage have a look at the tyres. Some of the old rubber is either cracked or it's got very, very hard, like glass, and that makes the car a lot more difficult to drive because it can't get that grip onto the track. Some models have a little weight at the back which can help. Sometimes you can soften the rubber with some sort of vinegar solution, or in fact you can actually now buy a replacement set of tyres. They're polyurethane, so they're not quite as good at gripping, but certainly if you have no tyres left on your car, it's a lot better than nothing. Okay, so we're just popping that in now. There we go. And then we pop the spring back and it's done. Don't forget, if you have a red cap, pop that back on. Finally, insert your body, pop the front two screws on. These screws are getting a bit worn now. There we go. Better. And it's done. The main difference between this and say a lorry or a bus is that they do tend to have two sets of springs going back to the motor, which is right at the back. Again, sometimes on the older models it's sometimes better to put a little bit of weight on the back just to make sure it sticks back down onto the road. But again, cleaning contact is key to everything. You may also, of course, have ones that have a flashing light. This is the D-type, the Jag, the old police one, and as it goes round, the current goes round and makes the blue light flash. Now I had a body of this. I didn't have the light, it came like that. So what I did was I replaced the red light with a 12 volt LED I had, and I just connected it to either side. As it goes round now, it simply flashes and comes along with the word taxi on the side now, so we have a red flashing taxi. Thank you. I hope that's been useful.